What's up, guys? On Monday's episode of Locked On Gamecocks, we talk about big picture stuff and the state of the program for South Carolina football, as well as some early signing day period news and notes, some transfer portal stuff, and more with our good friend Chris Gordy from Locked On SEC. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler, back again with working internet. You love to see it. I know I do, at least. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Monday, as I always say, if that's even possible. And we are back with a loaded episode for a Monday afternoon, Monday evening. I hope all of you had a fantastic weekend. I'm sure church was fun on Sunday, and the office, going into the office on Monday morning was probably a joy as well, getting to talk trash to all of your fellow Clemson fans, friends, coworkers, whatever. It's been 48 hours and it's still been a fantastic time. First and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for everyone that tunes in to Locked On Gamecocks, especially those that are making it their first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We are free and available podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team almost every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Remember, guys, I've told you this repeatedly, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. You can end the season now with a big return on FanDuel because new customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, we are joined by a very special guest. Like I told you, we're going to bring him in right now. Host of Locked On SEC, and also, fun fact about Chris Gordy that not a lot of people know, he is actually the backup bass guitarist for Hoobastank. He's out on the road right now. Gordy, what city are you in, brother?
I'm in my home studio, and I couldn't even name a Hoobastank song. Do they sing The Reason? Is that their big hit?
You're the worst person I know. First off, Crawling in the Dark is a fantastic song. Also, Running Away. What is wrong with you? I set you up perfectly for that. All right. We'll bring Gordy in on a better note.
Hoobastank trivia, I would play along, but goodness.
It was on my Spotify. What do you call it that I have? I don't know. It was on my Spotify today. Hoobastank rules. Anyway, Chris Gordy, who is not on the road with Hoobastank, that was just a bad intro. A lot of people are very confused right now. Does do the best Shaggy impersonation I've ever heard in my life. If you ever get the chance to do karaoke with him.
Yeah, no doubt.
Gordy, let's just get right into it, man. Rivalry week ends. I know you cover Locked On SEC for Locked On. Do a tremendous job with that. We talk about it on the show a lot. But give me just your overall takeaways from rivalry week before we get into South Carolina stuff, and just what your biggest, like I said, biggest takeaways were from the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, to me, first you got to start with the games on what was that, Friday, where obviously, Georgia, nobody expected that thing to go, 8 overtimes. I was just like, I couldn't believe, like, looking back at the stats, Marler, I think Georgia only had 1 sack on the night. Like, that's what's crazy. Is like you went 8 overtimes and you only got 1 sack. Now, Haynes King being the dual threat runner that he is, I mean, my God, like, I don't know who was more fun to watch throughout the season, Haynes King at Georgia Tech, Norris Sellers at South Carolina, or Diego Pavia at Vandy. Like, the running ability of all three of those guys, it made them so super dynamic. And Georgia was in trouble, like, multiple times Friday. I'm like, dude, they're going to lose this game. And they just kept stepping up, making plays when they needed them. And luckily they survived. But I think that was really shocking for a Kirby Smart team to not be able to, play cleaner football and put that team away.
I tell you what, well, one, if you would have listened to anything that I said on the pod that I was on with you last week, I told you that Georgia Tech, one of the things they do better than almost anyone in the country is they were like one of the top 3 teams in the country in sacks allowed. They only had 5 all season. But you're right about the Haynes King thing. He's a little bit more different of a runner than Lenore Sellers because he's like more of like long strider. And I hate to use this, but sneaky fast. he's sneaky athletic, I think is what people will say at the combine, because of how pale that complexion is. But I will also tell you, I think that I've said this over and over. I feel like Georgia got lucky that they didn't play South Carolina this year.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, because it would have given them problems. And that's the crazy part about this Georgia defense this year is like they got dudes. They got highly touted dudes and big time recruits. But this is the first Georgia defense that, like, I would venture to say they're not special, right? I mean, from the Kobe Dean to, fill in the name you want of the last 3-4 years of Georgia defense is like they just don't have that dude. I think Michael Williams was supposed to be that guy, and he, has been battling injuries all year. But that's not to say that they can't be good enough to run through a playoff and win a championship. And I still, if I had to pick any team, like ride with one team the whole way, I might pick Georgia even over Oregon, because what we're going to see is depth matters when you're having to play all these playoff games. Look, a BYU or a Boise could get hot for 1 week and win one playoff game, right? That's those old bowl games we used to see when Boise beat Oklahoma or whoever. When Utah beat Alabama, a one-off, but try beating 5 Alabamas. Like that's where the playoff, I think the cream is going to rise to the top on who has depth, who can survive injuries and go, hey, we lost our starting nose tackle. No big deal. Next man up. Like Georgia can do that. I don't know if some of these other teams can do that. So, but again, has it been a perfect year? No, but Georgia also make the case they're the most battle tested. You mentioned they didn't play South Carolina, but go look at the teams they've played. They're way more battle tested than Texas. That's what would be so interesting about this game this Saturday is that Georgia's banged up right now, having gone to 8 overtimes. Texas, they won pretty handily against A&M. They're fresh, so we'll see what that one looks like.
So I will say this, like, kind of piggybacking off that a little bit, and I agree with you. I think Georgia is battle tested. I still say going into the end of this season, and you watched it this weekend, right? Like every team was on display. Everybody played a game. It was no bye weeks. Obviously, it's the end of the regular season. Be honest with me. Tell me how many teams right now in the SEC do you think are beating South Carolina?
Like neutral field. If you just play, it's tough because I don't want to talk down to them because I like the South Carolina team. They're red hot. They're playing awesome. I did think things got a little hairy there at Clemson. Luckily, they were able to put together that late drive, but it was starting to feel like I don't know if they're going to pull this one out.
Yeah.
Neutral field against Texas or Georgia, I'd probably would lean Texas or Georgia. Not to say they can't beat them, but like if I'm trying to be objective, Tennessee and Alabama. We saw them play Alabama, and Bama was lucky to win, but it was in Tuscaloosa. If that game's in Columbia, probably goes a different way. I'd say the same thing for Tennessee. If South Carolina had to go to Knoxville, probably going to lead Tennessee. If it's in Columbia, probably lead South Carolina. So, I think on a neutral field, there's not many teams right now I would pick over the Gamecocks just because of the defensive front. O-line is superseded all of my expectations this year. They played well above their heads than I thought they could. And Sellers is just playing on another level, and Rocket Sanders too. So, look, they're red hot. I'd love to see them get into the playoff. I think multiple things have to happen here, and the Bama brand is strong, and unfortunately, that's probably going to be the difference maker.
Yeah, we're going to get more into that here in the second segment. But I forgot to tell you this: you're strapped in for 30 minutes, so hopefully that's cool. For those of you that know, Gordy is a consummate professional. I am not, as most of you guys have realized, and Gordy is known since he's known me for about 7 years now. We'll be right back with a little bit more here, talking about Gamecock football and the big picture stuff and the state of the program with Gordy. Before we do, I'm going to take a quick break and tell you about our friends over here at, again, professional, at FanDuel. Guys, I've told you about this over and over and over again. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers, if you are a new customer and you sign up right now, you can get $150 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet, as long as you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the latest the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I've said this all the time, if you're anything like me and you want to have the most well-rounded and well-educated amount of information before you start placing any of your money down, you need to go over to FanDuel and check them out today. They have everything you could possibly need to make an informed decision and a great bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we will be right back. More Locked On Gamecocks continues next. All right, so we are back here with more Locked On Gamecocks, and we're with our buddy Chris Gordy. Gordy, we kind of touched on it before the break, and you brought this up, and it feels like it's so funny, man, because like I brought this up like I want to say it was before the A&M game, but it might have been after the A&M game, and it's just funny to watch this thing evolve. And I remember talking about the strength of schedule that was remaining to go to. To finish out the season. So when South Carolina was going off their bye, they had 5 games left. And one of the things that ESPN put out with their FPI strength of schedule, South Carolina had the easiest remaining strength of schedule. And you looked at the numbers and it was like, how do they have the easiest strength of schedule? They play 4 ranked opponents in their last 5 games. They were able to win every single one of those. Obviously, they end the season on a 6-game winning streak. And then the conversation kind of shifted from, hey, they might not only win a majority of the rest of their games or all the rest of their games, but will they have a chance to compete in the playoff? Because when they started on their run, they were 3-3. Now you fast forward in the season, you're 9-3. It's picked up a ton of steam, but I gotta say I'm worried because of the situation with Alabama being. It very much feels like the last 2 teams that are going to be in are Bama or South Carolina. Those 2 teams it feels like are going to fight for the last spot. And I understand the head-to-head matchup, and I understand all that. I have a hard time looking at these 2 teams and thinking that Alabama head and shoulders deserves to be in over South Carolina. I will tell you one last thing before I turn to you, but you look at the current odds. This is from Bet Online. The current odds a week ago, Alabama's odds were 40-1 to win the national championship. They're now 18-1. South Carolina's odds are currently 80-1. A week ago, they weren't even on the board. That almost alone tells me what I don't want to hear, which is if a week ago South Carolina didn't even have odds to play or to win a national championship like everyone else. I mean, Miami, Ole Miss, Tulane had odds a week ago. Tulane did. But you look at the other teams: Iowa State, South Carolina, UNLV. All off the board a week ago. Now all of a sudden they are they have a bit of a shot, but it's way lower than Alabama's. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean they're putting that out just because they got to include teams that have a remote possibility. So they got to put some kind of odds, and why not? You'll take people's money no matter what. The tough part here becomes comparing resumes, and obviously look, Bama's got one of the best resume wins in beating number 2 Georgia, but unfortunately, Ole Miss also has that same credible win. They also beat Georgia. Yeah. So both of them beat them in their house. So it was Georgia on the road. To me, I can't get that Oklahoma stink out of my mind when I think of Alabama. It's not like it happened 3 months ago. This was 2 weeks ago. And for the committee to still say, well, we think, that they didn't drop Bama far enough, which they never did. I mean, I always thought that was a Saban factor. LSU would lose at Alabama and drop from 4 to 11th. LSU would beat Bama, and Bama would go from 2 to 4. And it's like, wait, why did they not drop far? It's like, well, they're Bama. And they earned the respect, right? I mean, they earned everybody's benefit of the doubt. And I get Saban's not there, but the brand is still there.
Right.
That's what the committee looks at. And let's be real, I think the TV networks are saying too. They're sitting in the room going, what would get more eyeballs? Bama versus Penn State or South Carolina versus Penn State? It's damning to say that. I hate to say it because South Carolina's been awesome this year. Shane Beamer deserves all his roses, but they're not the national brand yet. Bama is still the national brand, even without Saban. Now, I think that'll erode over time. We'll see if Kalen DeBoer can live up to it, but that's just the gist of it. And people keep bringing up the head-to-head, and I get it, but shouldn't we also take into factor that Bama was a 21-point favorite over South Carolina and eked out a point win? We can't just go, well, head-to-head, brother, win's a win. Okay, I get it, but we do this like with the college football or college basketball tournament selection committee. You get points for being hot at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Bonus points. We elevate your seating because they go, well, this team's right. They're on a heater, man. They've won 6 in a row. Yet in football, they go, that doesn't matter. It's a total resume. It's like, well, why shouldn't that matter? South Carolina's red hot. Give them a shot. But again, I just think, to your point, at the end of the day, they're going to go back and look at it and say Bama's the bigger brand. Yes, I know they just got, and I keep saying this to Bama fans. Do you really want to make the playoff?
No.
Like, because you risk going and playing Notre Dame and getting embarrassed. Jalen Milroe's legacy ending. I'm just saying, like, I don't think they would, but
yeah,
Notre Dame's offense these last few weeks, they've been humming. Like, you really want to watch Bama make the playoff and lose? Like, you're almost better. Go to one of those Florida Bowl games, beat the snot out of a bad Big Ten team, and you'll feel way better about Bama and Kalen DeBoer heading into year 2. You'll be like, yeah, we beat Iowa 40-3, and we got a top recruiting class. You make the playoff and lose, I think you're really feeling bad. Like right now, Bama fans don't want to say they're in love with Kalen DeBoer. You make the playoff and lose, and you're one and done. You really like, this is the right guy. 4 losses, like,
yeah.
So, you know.
I'll push back on the fact that you brought up Notre Dame because I don't expect Notre Dame to beat anybody in the SEC or anybody with
a team that could be there.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with you. And I also say this, like here's the thing I keep coming back to, and you know this, like I grew up around that fan base. I've covered that team for like for other publications, and I fully get it. South Carolina deserves to be in more than Alabama, and I'll tell you 2 reasons why. One, Tom Fornelli, who I do not like, posted this today. And it's a good point, even though it sounds like he just has a hard-on for hating the SEC. It says Jalen Milroe's last 5 SEC games as a passer, so not including all of his rushing touchdowns, 59% completion percentage, 7.1 yards per attempt, that's whatever, 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions, 1 passing touchdown in his last 5 SEC games. That's not like – and then you look at Lenore Sellers, and Lenore Sellers is 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, over the last 6 games. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I thought what Beamer said on the field after the game, which was, hey man, this kid should win the Heisman. Like he's the best player in America. I remember sending this text to my buddy David Carter in the first quarter, and I was like, maybe I'm ahead of myself and getting ahead of my skis, but it feels like Lenora Sellers is going to be a front runner for the Heisman no matter what after this game for next season. Yeah. I do think he's one of the best players in the country right now. I say all that to then tell you, like, I hate arguing hypotheticals, or at least I hate when other people do it. It's okay when I do it, because usually it's Georgia fans that are doing it. But, like, the hypothetical I will say, and I can tell you as someone, again, that grew up around this fan base and has been around that program and all that kind of stuff with Alabama, if this was reversed and Alabama had won 6 games in a row with a quarterback that was playing this well and had this many moments and signature moments against Missouri, who's ranked, against Clemson on the road, who's ranked, what he did against Texas A&M. And then you start looking, well, he was injured for half the game against LSU. If all of that was happening with the Alabama helmet on, Bama would be a shoo-in. Like if you were looking at these 2 teams, you said, hey, South Carolina lost to Oklahoma as a double-digit favorite by 21 points and scored the fewest points they've scored in a program in their last 20 years. And then Alabama has won 6 straight games and they finally figured it out. It wouldn't even be in question.
Yeah, we have our biases, and it's with that. First off, the people in that selection committee room have no idea what the hell they're doing. They don't even know what the job is. Like, they don't even take strength of schedule into consideration, which is absolutely stupid. But yeah, I mean, to your point, like, I do think you got to put some stock into what has this team done recently, and it's not like they've played 5 cupcakes. You said it, they've ranked teams. Like, why are they not getting credit for it? And it's almost like you got to lay the foundation this year for next year. If South Carolina misses the playoff, they go to a bowl game, they win. It's a 10-win season. Then I think next year the Gamecocks start to get a little bit more credit because they go, oh, this wasn't just a one-year fluke. You're building something here. Sellers becomes more of a household name and all that. And who's the receiver they got coming in? Malik Clark or something, the top receiver in this class. I mean, like that was my biggest knock on South Carolina coming this season was like, I don't know if they have weapons.
Right.
Like, I didn't know who their receivers are. Then here come, Nick Harbor starts to emerge, and Josh Simon, emerged. I mean, they've come out with great weapons, and Rocket Sanders suddenly got healthy, and yeah, he was banged up a couple times this year, but when he was healthy, my God, one of the best running backs in the SEC, probably the country. So I don't know, man. I hate it if they do get left out. I'll really hate it if Bama gets in. Hopefully Clemson will help this thing out. Clemson will beat SMU.
No, I think you need the opposite. I think you need SMU to beat Clemson.
Yeah, but if Clemson wins, they get a spot. SMU's got a spot. Because if Clemson loses, they're out. That opens the door.
Which opens up a door for the SEC.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, and I know I'm trying to be unbiased. I'm saying, like, it's almost better leave the SEC at 3. Then don't let them get a 4th team in. But for Carolina's sake, I hope it is them. I just don't think it would be.
I think, and this will be the last thing I say before we move on to the next segment. I think the thing that pisses me off most, and especially being around this fan base, even though it's only been for like a couple months running the show, is I get what you're saying, and I hate hearing you say it. I don't think you're wrong, and it's just crappy. Like the idea that, like, well, if South Carolina wins 10 games this year, next year, then they'll start having, that'll hold weight with the committee. And it's like, I don't care about next year. I care about what they've done this year, because this year is the one that's like on the line. And you've already put it to 12 teams. If South Carolina is the 13th team, next year you get 14 in, and it's like, oh, they would have made it next year. And you keep kind of like kicking the can down the road with that. And the other thing that I've said this before, and there's a part of me that wants to see this happen just because I think it's got to be the catalyst for change. And that is Greg Sankey's own greed and own, I think, ego has gotten in the way of getting a potential 4th team in. And like Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas are all locks. Adding Texas and adding Oklahoma is one thing. You bring in so much more strength, like added strength to schedule.
Hang on, you think even Georgia loses to Texas, you think they're a lock?
1,000% they're in.
3 locks.
Yeah. Okay. You heard Joe Tessitore say it 1,000 times on Friday night. Like, if Georgia wins, it's a clinch. I don't know how many. Like, it was unbelievable. That was one of the worst broadcasts I've heard in a long time.
He goes 0 to 100 so quick. Like, it's like he went to the Gus Johnson School of Broadcasting.
Yeah. And then Palmer always explains things. Dude, I would have taken that broadcast over Sam Acho, just explaining in the most basic elementary things possible. Like South Carolina came out of the tunnel and they're wearing white jerseys. That's because they're on the road in this game. If they were at home, they'd be in a different color jersey. It's like, I get it, man.
My favorite is Brock Osweiler. If you had the privilege of hearing him, he's like, no, what you want to do here is you want to lay the foundation for a good drive. And what a good drive would be is multiple plays of gaining yardage and getting into field goal range at minimum. I'm like, oh my God, please explain the forward pass to me.
So back to what I was saying. We could do that all day. Back to that's what we should do for karaoke next time, is just do college football announcer impersonations instead of music and just see how quickly the party dies.
What game did Joe Tess do?
What's that?
Which one was Tess on?
It was Tess and Palmer on Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Dude, I watched every game all weekend. They all skewed into one another.
That's fair. Okay, so back to what I was going to say though, real quick, was the thing with Sankey that really pisses me off, and it's frustrating because I think Sankey's been a wonderful commissioner. I have never been on board with the fact that they should have with them bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. I never thought that was a good idea. I've said this over and over again. In the same way, there's no reason to go to 9 games. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You have been the standard of all conferences in the country for the last several years. There's no need to expand. There's no need to do anything different because everything you've done has been done the right way, and you've won national championships and made money with it. I get it, but that's the only point I'll say with it. The thing that bothers me the most is if they don't get a 4th team in this year, it will be like if they don't get a 4th team for like in general, but especially if that 4th team is not South Carolina, part of the reason why is because the SEC officials that he refuses to acknowledge as being a problem, or just in general bring up, like, it would do so much for the brand to come out and say, you know what, that guy made a mistake, because everyone can see that he made a mistake. The head of officials has already said he's made a mistake. That's like a peer, a coworker of his. Like the fact that you won't say it and that it could potentially cost you a 4th team in the playoff is so stupid, for one. And two, I think South Carolina fans more than anything are so tired of being are feeling like, okay, if they do change it, that's great. But at what cost? We were the ones that got screwed over before that ever happened. And I think that's what's so frustrating with it. We have more to come with Chris Gordy. We'll close out the show here without any more impressions of C-list announcers on ESPN. Locked On Gamecocks continues next. All right, before we bring Gordy back on for the final part of the show, I do want to remind you about our friends at Game Time app. Guys, I had Game Time app sadly this week because I got some tickets. I was very excited. I downloaded the app, even though I already had it. I want you to download the app as well, but I got on Game Time. I searched for my favorite band. You guys have heard me do this before. Creed tickets. And I was very fired up because it's Wednesday. I even tried to recruit Gordy to come in town early for the SEC championship game so he could go. Sadly, Wednesday night, I didn't realize this is National Signing Day. And now I no longer go to Creed. The good news is, thanks to the Game Time app, it is the most helpful customer service on any ticketing app you can possibly find. They have Game Time ticket coverage because they love their fans. They're committed to ensuring you have an outstanding experience when you buy from Game Time. Their team is proud to offer the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, so you can rest assured they've got your back. Buy with confidence, knowing your purchase is covered by Game Time ticketing coverage. If you're like me, 24-hour return guarantee came in very handy, very sadly, but it came in very handy as well. They also have the lowest price guarantee. They have event cancellation protection, job loss assurance, which is what I would have had to use if I went and missed National Signing Day, and then also on-time ticket delivery. Make sure if you were buying tickets, you were doing it through the Game Time app. They do a phenomenal job. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. All right. We're going to bring our buddy Gordy back on. You just heard the news. I can't go to Creed.
Dude,
very sad.
$107. This is on the Game Time app. All in pricing, $107 lower bowl. If you live in Atlanta, jump on that.
For Creed.
For Creed. You're right near the stage, lower bowl, $107.
I'm so pissed, dude. I'm so pissed. I was so excited. And
look, National Signing Day is, we've moved this thing all around. It's and we're still calling it the early signing period. Can we stop calling it that? It's National Signing Day.
Yeah, agreed.
No, that's a February when 5 dudes sign.
Right. I think it was last year, 97 out of the top 100 commits all committed or all signed on National Signing Day or early signing day. And it was 79 4 or 5 years ago when they first started doing it.
Well, so isn't the rule change too? If you're an early enrollee, you get to go through the bowl practice and all. Do you get to play the bowl game?
I don't think you get to play in the bowl game. I think you get to go through practice though.
That'd be way cooler if they let early enrollees. Your first game ever is in the Peach Bowl.
Do you know this kid's only 15 years old?
I mean, Ryan Williams is setting the trend here. Let's just make that a rule.
The kid won't turn 18 until after a national championship that he will not play in. But all right, let's get into the final part here. Gordy, okay, just you obviously you cover the SEC and have done a tremendous job with that. Looking at this South Carolina program, I'm sifting through my Phil Steele magazine right now and looking at the projections of what he had in the SEC to start the year. I think he had South Carolina as the 11th best team in the SEC. Big picture, man. Just take me through what you think, where this program is right now, where it's headed, and just the positives of the, as Brock Osweiler would say, is the foundation that was laid from Shane Beamer and company this year.
You're going to have to replace some pieces next year. Obviously, Kyle Kennard was incredible for you this year, and some pieces in that secondary. They just always seem to replace guys, though. I'm going to assume that Eamon Wari is going to head pro. I mean, we'll see what happens with some of the big decisions here. The big one is you got Dylan Stewart back, and then I'd be looking to that portal about adding some more pieces. Rocket Sanders, I think he's done. I read something yesterday where saying he could ask the NCAA for another year, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's done as far as college goes. But like I said, you're bringing in the big 4-star wide receiver Malik Clark. That's going to help. I think he'll play immediately. Nick Harbor, I think, is still just scratching the surface on what he can become. But I mean, if Sellers puts in the work this offseason, I was trying to find the clip because you and I did a show preseason, and I remember saying this. I said, what if he has a Johnny Manziel type season? Yeah. And it's kind of, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say he had that this year, but it was way closer to a Manziel year than the opposite, right? Like, he took the league by storm. And, you know, you look back on it, you just wonder what if, like, if he had not gotten hurt against LSU, I think they win that game. If they had not brought him and Rocket Sanders back not 100% against Ole Miss, I guarantee they put up a better fight against Ole Miss. Right. I mean, the defense held Ole Miss to 27. I mean, that was when they were coming off scoring like, or averaging like 500, 600 yards a game through the first 5 weeks of the season. Yeah. You know, so you kind of got them at the wrong time. And the Bama game, you know, it was like things started to break your way in that second half. It just was almost like you dug yourself a little bit too much of a hole. But again, you know, you hit that field goal, maybe that one plays out different. But I just think this year compared to a year ago right now, Marler, the arrow is just pointing upward. I mean, from missing a bowl game last year to, you know, I was literally talking about Shane Beamer potentially being on the hot seat. And, you know, what do you do here? Yeah. He has his best year yet, and he's not done. Let's see what they do with the bowl game. Let's see if they make the playoff. But, like, you're really building a lot of excitement for next year. And I didn't even realize they open next year in Atlanta against Virginia Tech. That's going to be an awesome, you know, week one showcase to let the Lenore Sellers Heisman hype build and let him go put up big numbers in week one. And yeah, man, I'm proud for them. I remember talking to Shane at Senior Bowl, seeing him on the field with his guys who were, you know, showcasing their talents. And he had this huge smile on his face. He was so happy to see his guys, you know, helping say, I put these guys in the league. And, you know, I think he's going to continue to do it. He's in a great spot.
Dude, I keep saying this, that if there's one example to me of what Beamer has done that's different than any other coach, I think in the SEC's, well, not any other coach, but like you could argue that he's done a better job than any other coach. The buy-in he gets from his players, like, I mean, like, listen, Georgia has a kid that started 10 games for them this year. They're going to play in an SEC championship game on Saturday. The portal doesn't open until next Monday. They have a kid that started 10 games this year that has already decided he's going to enter the portal and made his announcement on Sunday on Twitter. Like Nick Harbor is a guy, I've said this example over and over and over again, and I'll keep doing it. But Nick Harbor is a guy that, like, he's in his second year. He has not had his breakout part yet where he's, like, you know, getting 100 yards, you know, per game or having these 8 receptions, 120 yards, like all that kind of stuff that we've seen from Deebo Samuel, that we've seen from guys like even Van Jefferson and guys like, you know, Xavier Legette last year. They got that kid to buy in, instead of being a world-class athlete in a non-contact sport, to be a blocker for like most of the year. I think what Beamer has been able to build that way has been tremendous and really, really impressive. Listen, I go over on your show all the time, so I apologize for doing the same when I brought you on this one. I appreciate you joining us. We'll let you close it out, because I think the closing thing that LockedOn wants us to read is for your podcast. So tell everyone where they can find you this week and weeks to come and all that good stuff, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys making Marler and LockedOn Gamecocks your first listen. But hey, for your second listen, you can check out Chris Gordy with the LockedOn SEC podcast, talking all things SEC, and it's loaded these next couple weeks. I mean, we're talking National Signing Day. We're talking transfer portal. We've already got, I mean, Auburn doesn't even have a quarterback room right now. We're trying to figure out how they're going to fill that room. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces going on right now. Well, Robbie Ashford, go rejoin him back in Auburn. We'll talk about all that here on LockedOn SEC these next couple weeks.
All right. Thanks, brother. We will talk to you soon. And for everyone else, we will see you all tomorrow.